gonna be part 4 of a series I started here on my channel. I'll leave the other episodes linked below, but this is a version of things that you thought were sustainable, but actually are not. And I've kind of used this series to really talk about things that I actually am very, very passionate about, and just like in general, the way I present this information, I'm incredibly passionate about, and that is talking about the gray areas of sustainability, because I've done several interviews and several public speaking events recently where people ask me, is this good? Is this bad? Do you think this should be done and this should not? Like, everything is so black and white, and really sustainability is a complete gray area. To point at something and say this is good and that is bad takes away all of the nuance and the actual discussion that I personally think needs to be happening. So even though this has a very catchy title, things you thought were sustainable but that actually are not, really I'm just gonna tell you about some things that maybe you didn't think about before, or some things you didn't know. Since this is part 4, if you want to see another part to this series, make sure you let me know in the comments things that you think are sustainable that maybe are not or need to be part of this discussion. Let me know. So if you're excited about the gray area discussions, give this video a thumbs up. I also want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. I appreciate them so much for sponsoring a video without actually interfering with the content we're going to talk about today. So if you ever need a website, or if you just need a domain, check the link at the top of my description to give you a little discount. First up, we have receipts. Now, my perception of what people think is like sustainable and not, and what people already know, is definitely like skewed, right? Because I feel like my knowledge is pretty vast. I feel like I know a lot of things that I take for granted, and then I feel like the people I'm surrounded with know absolutely nothing. So let me know if you knew that receipts are not actually just paper. Most receipts you're getting at the store are actually coated in a type of plastic, and a lot of times that plastic still has BPA in it. So not only is it not sustainable in terms of the planet, because when things are double material, as we know, they're very difficult to recycle. So receipts are not just paper, they're definitely not compostable, and in most cases they're not even recyclable, which to me means not sustainable. But beyond that, receipts are actually not great for your health, and if you can avoid touching them, I definitely would. And there have actually been warnings put out by different health organizations that pregnant women should not touch receipts while pregnant at all. Some places definitely use just paper receipts, but most places use those plastic paper combinations, and I just don't know why it's not more common in 2022 to get a receipt emailed to you. There are some machines that are like used by local businesses. Let me know if these are in your area too. But basically they will attach your email once you put it in once to your credit card, and then when you use that system across a bunch of different local businesses, they have your email, they will email you a receipt.
Why is this not more common?
And even more frustratingly, why when I go to the hardware store does it give me an option for printing a receipt or print and email, but no option for just email? So I know a lot of times getting a receipt printed is out of your control, but if you can avoid them, definitely do so. And you can avoid them by just buying less, which is kind of what this channel is based on. So even more reason to not go and buy things, you know what I'm saying? Okay. I'm excited for this video, and most of the time when I get excited for videos is because I'm excited to read the comments to know if you knew about each of these or if you didn't. Also just so I can gauge my knowledge compared to yours. But did you know most gums are made with plastic? Yeah, most gums have literal plastic in them, and that's how you're able to chew on them for hours and hours and hours and they don't break down. That's also why you shouldn't swallow it. And I put this in here because I think a lot of people don't know that in general, but I think also because food can be seen as a food, right? And although if you're really into sustainability, you know that not all food is sustainable, and there are so many issues with our agriculture system. But I don't think gum is something people typically think of and go, that's not good for the environment, let me not do that. I actually will chew one gum which doesn't have plastic in it. It is biodegradable. It's called Simply Gum. They have several flavors now and they're actually pretty good. Most gums you're getting at like the corner store are containing plastic, and they will last in the environment for a very, very long time, and they're definitely not the most eco-friendly option, especially when you spit it on the ground. Why do people think that's okay? Or that wall in Seattle, it's disgusting and also bad for the environment. I actually wanted to make a whole in-depth deep dive into this one because I've just experienced so many different things considering the returns, but sorry, I just gave it away. It's returns. Returns you might think of as a more sustainable option, right? You buy something, it doesn't work out for you, you don't want to throw it away, and you know that most things donated to thrift stores don't actually get resold, and so you decide, I'm gonna return it. They'll resell it, easy solution. If only it worked that way. I have firsthand experience with this, being a dumpster diver for many years and seeing companies literally destroy returns and put them in the trash so that no one can pick them out and actually use them, and they're not donating those returns either to make sure that they actually get utilized. This is not true across the board. Every single brand doesn't throw away their returns, especially if things are being made ethically and sustainably. There's a lot of money to be lost when you just throw it away, and it's worth putting the investment in to relist the item and give it a new home. But many businesses, especially things like fast fashion, Amazon, places like Target, they're not reselling most of their returns. They're either throwing them away, or recently what I discovered is they will sell them in bulk to a discount store. And the issue that's happening here is just a really awful byproduct of capitalism, in that when something is returned, it takes more money for a business to pay someone to take that return back, process it, figure out where it goes in the store, and put it back on the store's shelf than it does to just have a streamlined system of it comes in and it goes out, whether that be in the landfill or these discount stores I'm talking about. If you've never heard of Amazon warehouse sales, basically this is where Amazon takes their returns, puts them on a freaking pallet, and then auctions them off on a website somewhere. I don't know, I've never done it. Basically there are some stores, and I don't think it's a chain or anything like that. This store I have gone to doesn't even have a name on the outside of it, but there are places that will buy those pallets and will buy returns from places like Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, and Amazon, and give them one more chance before they head to the landfill. And on one hand, when I walked into this store, I thought, oh, this is so good. These items are getting one more chance to be like taken into someone's home or bought or whatever, used, before they head to the landfill. And on second hand, I thought how fucked up our system must be that this is what makes the most sense. I won't go on my anti-capitalism rant right here. Another time. If you're shopping consciously, I don't think you're the problem, but I know several people in my life who buy things because they thought it looked good, or they buy it online with the intention of, if I don't really like it, I'll just return it. And returns became so popular because a lot of people actually shop with that mentality, but rarely actually return things. But I think just shopping consciously and returning consciously and telling your friends and family about these issues, from showing them my dumpster diving videos of perfectly good returns thrown out, to showing them my vlog, which I'll actually link up here, where I went to the discount store, and just the mass amount of stuff that people are returning, that these businesses are not reselling, and that are eventually likely going to end up in a landfill. Recently, my friend Emmy from Sustainably Vegan came to hang out with me at my house, which was just such a nice treat to get to see people, because I feel like I haven't connected with a lot of people, obviously, since COVID, and having her here was really nice. While she was here, she was filming a video called, "Are These Eco-Friendly or Zero Waste Swaps?" or whatever she ended up calling it. And that really brought up an interesting thought process for me, because I feel like a lot of times when people start learning about sustainability or how to live a sustainable lifestyle more specifically, they start consuming all of this content, like these videos on YouTube, which I myself make, and I will link one right here if you want to go check it out. Or they start seeing things on Pinterest or Instagram or ads on Facebook or wherever the hell they're finding this information. They start seeing people talking about the reusable swaps that they use in their home, and they think they need these things. So her video got me thinking, I talk a lot about not buying swaps just because it's more a sustainable thing and throwing your old thing away, using what you already have until it's done. But I think an additional layer there, something that's not really a sustainable act, is buying things because everybody else likes them. For instance, in that video, she talked about silicone bags, which for me, I use in my home every single day, multiples a day sometimes, and people like Get to Marry don't like them at all and don't find them useful to her. I think also Amber from a fairly local family, she doesn't like them either because she just uses glass jars, which is fine. There's no need to shame someone because people, I'm just gonna Some people will shame me because I like my silicone bags because I could just be using glass jars. And yeah, I could, and I do. I do reuse a lot of my glass jars. But also, I like the ease of silicone, not having to worry about it cracking in the freezer, not having to worry about it breaking if I drop it. I don't need to defend myself, but point being, let's stop the shaming. But that was not the point of this little thing. You know how I do this all the time. Point is, evaluate things that you actually currently use in your home, right? If you use Ziploc baggies a lot, probably silicone stasher bags, a better option for you than just switching to using glass in your home all the time. And I think in that video we talked also about like wax wraps, which I personally don't use in my home, but Emmy really liked and thought she would get a lot of use out of. And I think the more that this becomes like mainstream, reusables and like compostable things like we're talking about become more mainstream, it's also important to talk about just because something works for someone doesn't mean it's gonna work for everyone or be the perfect swap for you. The most sustainable option is the thing you're gonna use. Did you know tissue paper can't be recycled? Did you know? I don't know, let me know. Same as if you've ever ordered from a sustainable business, a lot of times they'll wrap anything that's breakable in tissue paper and then on the outside layer is like corrugated paper. I don't really know how else to say it. It has like holes in it. If you've ever ordered from a sustainable brand online, you know what I'm talking about. Not that those options are not sustainable at all, not that they're not both better than plastic, because I definitely think they are, but they're not recyclable. And the reason I say that that would make them unsustainable or not the most eco-friendly option is because if you're putting them in your recycling, you're actually contaminating your recycling, and that can lead to more things going to the landfill. I talked about this in part 1 of this series where I talk about wish cycling. I'll link that up here for you. But wish cycling is where you have the best of intentions. Either you don't know it's not recyclable, or you're like, oh, I'm not sure if this is recyclable. I'll just put it in there anyway and hope that it gets recycled. A lot of times most municipalities, if there's an X amount of contamination per batch of recycling, if that percentage gets too high, they throw out the whole batch. Meaning you putting things that are not recyclable like tissue paper or that like corrugated paper into your recycling, it's contributing to getting to that percentage that could end up causing that entire load of recycling to go to landfill. And I think it might be time for me to make another video about like recycling, the basics of recycling. Let me know if you'd want to see that. It gets a little bit complicated even when I talk about these things like tissue paper, because I'm speaking from what is and isn't recyclable in my area, which is going to be or can be very different from someone who lives in the Northeast or even in another country. And so talking about things that aren't recyclable gets a little bit complicated as someone who's just like sitting here in Texas. So definitely check with your recycler, but where I live, not recyclable, so don't put those things in there. Similarly, something that's very frustrating to me are mixed plastics. Have you seen this where brands are mixing like recycled plastic with like plant-based plastics, and then they create this new mix of things that a lot of times can't even be recycled? When you mix a plant-based material with a petroleum-based material, those things become a whole new material that can't then be broken down and turned back into another product, which to me is not a better solution. I feel like a fully plant-based plastic would be good, because a lot of times you can make it to where it is compostable, which I think is a good option, or making things out of just recycled plastic I think is also a good option. But combining those two is not a soundproof solution, because those things are not recyclable or compostable now. And I've wanted to do this for so long, like take you guys to a recycling facility so you can understand like how the sorting works, and then how the breaking down of materials works, and then how they melt it down to become something new. Once you understand that process, you understand why things like this are so frustrating, because they can't be turned back into something new. Their only destination now is the landfill. And I'd love to know if anybody around you uses these things, if you've seen them before, or if it's confusing in general, because it's my other frustration with these mixed materials is it just gets so confusing to the average consumer. If someone doesn't understand the intricacies of how recycling works, they're gonna pick up this plastic cup, might not even realize that it's part plant-based materials, put it in the recycling, which contaminates recycling, put it in the compost, which contaminates compost. It's just not helpful. It's not helpful to anybody involved. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What are some things you thought were eco-friendly that you're realizing are not so much? Because if you want a next part of this series, I'm gonna need to see those comments below. And let me give another huge thank you to today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. Like I said, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform, so you can look to them to build an online store, website, or even just if you need to purchase a domain. Squarespace makes setting up a website super easy because you don't need to learn coding. They already have some beautiful templates over there that you can customize to be exactly what you're looking for. Squarespace makes it easy to connect your social media and to also take advantage of their blogging tools. You can do email campaigns through Squarespace because it is an all-in-one platform, like I mentioned. With their 24-hour customer service and traffic insight tools, it makes it the easiest way to build a website on the internet today. So when you're ready to launch, head over to squarespace.com/Shelbizleee for 10% off of your first purchase.